Hello, everybody. I'm immigration lawyer John Kasrabi coming to you live again this Tuesday, August 19th, 2025, where we take your questions live about U.S. immigration law to give general guidance and understanding, not intended as individual legal guidance, just general kind of stuff. The case that our office typically handles, immigration law firm called JQK Law Firm, headquartered in Los Angeles. We take cases from all across the world. Our location doesn't matter for the cases that we do. Almost everything's done by mail and uploading and email, that kind of stuff. For the cases that we handle, we don't do every type of case. But we come here every week to take your questions live, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, for almost 4 or 5 years now, probably 5 years. And God willing, we'll continue another 5. We're on live on TikTok on the JQK Immigration Law page, on YouTube at JQK Law or U.S. Immigration Talk in the Clips Show, as well as on Instagram, JQK Law Firm, and LinkedIn, my personal profile, John Kasrabi. So if you want questions, the best place to join us is to follow us and join us on YouTube. That's the best place our systems allow us to get questions. The other places is kind of hard to keep track. We'll try to do our best to answer everybody to the extent possible. General kind of understanding and guidance on the situation, but not, again, individual legal guidance. Having said that, let's get the show started. Feel free to shoot out your questions and we could take it from there. Obviously, the immigration system is in a period of great upheaval. There's a lot of wild and crazy stuff happening. We're seeing all sorts of things we've never seen before. People being hassled that haven't been, the government making new decisions, memos every day coming out. Just today, one that said if you said anything that's anti-Semitic or considered un-American or anti-American, we're going to deny your case on discretion. Then we have like another case. This is a really big deal I'm talking about. It's for citizenship cases where they're going to be more strict about the good moral character requirement. There's always been a requirement for citizenship, naturalization, that you have good moral character. Now, there are requirements on what that is. Obviously, no arrest history, no criminal history, that kind of stuff. But they're going to be looking into other things, how well you adapted your life in the U.S., how your life was here, looking at the personal and community service and that kind of stuff. And there's no real measurement on how we could show that. It's going to be interesting to see, to say the least, how it's going to play out. But it makes the naturalization citizenship process for N400 much more complicated than it's ever been because we're kind of guessing at a moving target. So instead of just fulfilling the fundamental requirements for citizenship, now we're going to go into like, okay, what have you been doing since you got here? What are you doing in the community? What kind of family members you have? What's your work history? What's your financial history? Things that they wouldn't get into unless you're doing negative things in those areas. That's going to be a big shift in the citizenship space, and we're waiting to see how that happens. The memo, the policy, the guidance on this came out last week, but it was only a 4-page letter and not much more than that. So we're going to see how it plays out in the upcoming year, and it's just the beginning. We have a question on Instagram. Portia asks, good evening. I'm Portia, and I'm wondering why it takes so long for my alien husband's application. Is there a backlog? Well, if to say put it likely, yes, there is a huge backlog. I'm not sure what kind of case you're doing, whether it's consular processing or adjustment of status, or what issues your husband's case may have. But in general, they're slow, and that's part of the immigration system. Now, I don't know the details of how long your case is going. Maybe it's too long. Maybe it's time to complain, file a lawsuit. Some people are waiting a month, and they say, why is it taking so long? A month is like 2 seconds in immigration timelines. Modar asks, how long I-130 spouse taking? I'm a U.S. citizen. My wife's in Pakistan. The short answer is forever. The I-130 case takes 12 to 15 months itself. That's to show that to USCIS, Immigration Department in the U.S., that your relationship is real. Once that's approved, the case gets transferred to the National Visa Center. You submit some initial documents there. It takes 1 to 3 months, depending how good you do your package and response. And then you have to wait to see what's going on with embassy interview. And the embassy in Pakistan takes a long time, easily a year or two, unfortunately. Pakistan's one of the worst. And then after the interview, sometimes cases get stuck in what's called administrative processing. So something that should really take a year for a Pakistani case, a year and a half maybe, could take 2, 3, 4 years if you're a U.S. citizen. If you're a green card holder spouse, then that's even worse. So fortunately, Pakistan's getting the short end of it. Sean asks, are you seeing ICE detention of out-of-status immediate relative adjustment beneficiaries? So Sean, thank you for your question, colleague. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it myself, but there are frequent reports of this happening. It's not enough that it's like too widespread. But every time it does happen, because it's such a rare thing, it spreads to the immigration law community. Everyone hears about it. So it does happen. I haven't had it in my cases, but it's definitely a worry I have that people who have a marriage green card case pending or who usually get a green card, they will eventually get a green card because their status runs out, their existing immigration status runs out while the case is pending and they're out of status. Historically, USCIS would not bother them unless they have criminal history, they've been arrested, they have misrepresentation, fraud, lying issues, or something like that. They'll just say, okay, let the person do an interview for a green card. If they're approved for the green card, then we're good. If they're not, then we're going to send them to immigration court and deal with the judge and all that. But something that the Trump administration has done to get their numbers of people being sent to court and picked up is that if you have a green card case pending, and because the government takes a long time, eventually your status runs out. If you're a student visa holder, if you're an H-1B person, worker, they'll say, okay, you don't have status anymore, we're going to put you in court. Now, when you do go to court, and for example, you're married to a U.S. citizen, the judge is going to probably approve your case because it's fine. But you just potentially were detained. You potentially have to spend $5, $10, $15, $20,000 of fees. The fear delays might take 2 or 3 years to get an appointment in the court. You got to drive out there. ICE is scary. They put your life through hell and waste your resources and waste the government's resources. And that's something, unfortunately, that's happening more and more. And it's very disappointing, very stressful. Never seen something like that happen. But it's one of those wild, crazy things that are happening. Shikwa says, hello, does travel ban include for LPR who petition their spouse? The travel ban for Iran in particular, or travel ban for most of them, but I think you're Iranian, there's no exceptions for spouses of green card holders. There's exceptions for spouse of citizens who won't apply. It's not green card holders. Now, if your spouse in Iran or Iranian spouse is a part of certain minorities, religious, ethnic groups, potentially there's an exception there that they have to hash out at the interview. Sever asks, hi, John. I'm waiting for my labor certification as my OPT extension ended. I have attended day one CPT. Is that okay? Well, technically, if you filed it and the government accepted your CVIS record and all that kind of stuff, it's fine. But same day one CPT is sometimes questionable, and that's something that potentially administration will crack down on. But that's as much as I can say about that. Jude says, an I-130 was filed last year. I live in Caribbean. How long will it take? The whole thing will probably take 1 to 3 years, depending on your background stuff. Maybe 1 to 2, probably a year and a half to 3 years. Porsche asks, I filed the April 2023. Status keeps saying pending. It was supposed to be 18 to 24 months. So what's very important about listening is that the timelines they give you on the Immigration Department website is not reliable. So I still don't know what kind of case you have, Porsche. The details aren't there if it's adjustment or if it's I-130. But any timeline that USCIS gives you on their website on your my.uscis.gov page is not a reliable timeline. So, don't take much word for how long it says. If it says it's getting done, not done, it's just going to take however long it's going to take. Real Shadabi asks, if someone is here on a tourist visa and their home country bans the visa after it was issued, is it possible to renew it here for another 6 months? I'm not sure what you mean your home country bans the visa. Their home country bans the visa. I'm not sure what that means. You mean like you're from like Iran in the U.S. on a tourist visa, and then there's a travel ban Iranians? Can you extend your status? You could. If you're inside the United States, the travel ban that Trump put out, it affects people who are getting visas. So you could request extension of status, but under the policy that I talked about earlier, some people requesting extension of their tourist visa are still getting sent to immigration court. And so it's like a really troublesome kind of situation. You got to take some risk in any immigration thing that you're doing right now. Abdullah says, I have my I-751 extension valid, but I'm outside the USA. Is it risky to enter US back? We got no choice. You got to get back. Is it risky? I don't know. I don't know your history or background, what paperwork you submitted, if you have any criminal history, if you relied on an application. It's just too much. I don't need to know. Do you have your passport? Do you have the receipt notice? Have you been sent to NTA notice to appear to immigration court? It's just too much to have to know to be able to begin to talk about what's safe and what's not. Having said all that, you might be perfectly fine and the government still hassles you. Or your name is similar to someone else and they hassle you thinking it's you're them. So it's not something I can say something safe or not. It's probably good, but I don't have any information that I need to be able to begin to answer that question. T. Burger says, my husband filed a petition for me this year. I got a removal letter. What's the next step? I'm sorry to hear that. I think it's one of the examples that we're talking about. The next step is the previous step, which should have been contact an immigration attorney, have an immigration lawyer, be prepared to what's going on there. If you got a removal letter, you need to talk with someone local to go to court with you, but it's a messed up situation. Portia follows up. She filed adjustment of status in April 2023. Yeah, that's taking a little bit longer. I don't have any case of 2023, so that is take too long. You should have probably talked with an immigration attorney a while ago just to see what's going on with your case. If you haven't already, I recommend sharing this feed on TikTok so your friends so they can join and ask their questions too. It's a prime time to get a hold of it. Immigration Journey, ask some general questions. Ty Berger says, "Hi, how can I contact you? I help with my case. I'm in New Jersey." Well, first thing, if y'all want to contact us, go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact. Fill out our contact page as your name, phone number, email, and a brief description of what the situation is so we can see if it's even the kind of case we handle. So for example, if you contact us about asylum, about deportation proceedings, about a T visa, for example, victim of human trafficking, we don't do any of those cases. So I really want to see what's going on first and take it from there. But T-Burgers, go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact, and we can take it from there. Real Shabi says, I mean, if someone is here on Iran on a tourist visa, it's possible to request an extension of 6 months. Yes, so Real Shabi, that's exactly the question answered. Is it possible? Yes. Is it going to get approved? Is it, are they going to pick you up in the meantime? Are you going to get a request for evidence? All those are possible, unfortunately. Alex asks, hi, can I apply for N400, the citizenship case, 3 or 5 years? If I-751 approved based on extreme cruelty. Yeah, so if you have like a VAWA-esque, a violent, abusive spouse kind of I-751 approval, you can use the 3-year version of the naturalization application, the faster version, instead of the 5-year version. Ken Bush asks, does the new citizenship memo apply to N4 applications that are pending after interview? That's a good question. I was reading it, the policy, the memo itself, and it didn't have a start date on there to say, okay, new applications or what. So after pending, if it's after interview, most likely it's not. But that's a good question. There is no start date listed on that memo, from what I recall. Hopefully, I'm not making a mistake. Jorge says, what is service motion to reopen an already approved N400? That means they reopened your case. They're saying it's not an issue with it. So that's probably what's happening. Unfortunately, maybe it's denaturalization. It's a terrible situation. You should contact the immigration attorney local to you as soon as possible. Nul asks, how long does the BIA appeal process take? I don't do BIA appeals myself, so I don't want to quote something, but the timeline is very dramatically. 8 says, "What? Hey there, what's the average wait time on F4 green card U.S. citizen petition for UK citizen sister?" Well, average wait time 15 to 20 years probably. Yeah, unfortunately, the F4 category siblings of U.S. citizens is really backed up, and just because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of siblings to apply for, and there's only a limited number of these immigrant visas or green cards that are issued. So the line accumulates pretty bad. The worst of it is, I think, for the Philippines. I'm loading the page right now that has the timelines. You could go to a website called Visa Bulletin. Type in Google Visa Bulletin. Click on the first link and the most recent month's Visa Bulletin. It'll say the month, and then there'll be some charts that come up. And for this one, you go to if your siblings outside the United States, and it's F4 sibling petition, you go to the first chart that comes up, and it says January 1st, 2008. They're approving cases that were submitted from I-130 January 1st, 2008. Now, if you're in the Philippines, not the worst. Mexico is worse. They're doing cases January 2001. But so if you filed the I-130 case January 1st, 2008, that's near the end. However, this Visa Bulletin, which is this calendar of month to month to see where you are in line, and if we're approving your case, then it doesn't move smoothly. For example, the previous one, August to September, there's no movement in the line. So if you had a case last month and you check into this month again, there's no movement. The line didn't move for the whole 30 days, 31, whatever the month is. So it's an unfortunate situation, but that does exist. That's why I say 15 to 20 years average, something like that, because we don't really know exactly when this line is going to move, and then when the embassy is going to have an interview time. 8 says, geez, way to speed up by working for U.S. Air Force in Europe. Not necessarily. The U.S. Air Force, no, if that you working for the U.S. Air Force doesn't give you any form of immigration status unless you're joining the military inside the United States. That's when programs happen. But just helping the Air Force there, I don't know. There might be programs that I'm not aware of, but I don't know of any program that helps any factor for helping the Air Force in there. Now we have people in Afghanistan who are helping U.S. troops, and a lot of them got completely screwed over and stuck in Afghanistan with no benefit, and they're here, they're losing benefits too because their parole was canceled. So I don't know. We don't really help people who help us a lot of times. Daphne says, I'm applying for my citizenship September 30th. While my husband is filing divorce. Will that affect me? So, Daphne, are you applying for citizenship based on the 3-year method or the 5-year method? If the 3-year method and you're not living with your spouse right now or haven't been the last 3 years before filing, then you have to wait the whole 5 years. So it affects it dramatically. And if your divorce is finalized before a citizenship case is done, they won't accept the citizenship case. So you may have to do the whole 5-year wait before you file for citizenship. They also may look into your relationship because you got divorced relatively soon. I don't know the exact facts. Maybe it hasn't. You were married for a long time, for all I know. But probably in most of these cases, you've been married fairly recently, a couple of years ago. So you're gonna have to document your relationship in case they want to get into it and ask like some personal questions to make sure your relationship wasn't fake. I sent an invitation to somebody by accident, so please disregard. Mariam says, on the I-130, I put started living together with husband March 21st, which was the date of marriage, but we started living together March 3rd after our religious ceremony. Will this be an issue? Probably no one's going to pay attention to that, but if you like, just update the record, let them know, but it probably doesn't matter. Yalda says, I've been in administrative processing for a non-immigrant visa for about 9 months. I'm an Iranian. They keep working on my clearances or they freeze the process because of the travel ban. We don't know if they froze the process or not. Probably 9 months of administrative processing, unfortunately, is not unheard of. So it could just be business as usual. There's no really no. I don't have any updates. Falsafahita says, can I request an immigrant visa interview on Zoom? No, you have to go in person for the immigrant visa interview. Daphne says, does a mother have full custody of minor children in Virginia State? I can't give legal guidance on non-immigration matters in another state that I'm not barred in, so I'm not allowed to answer that question. I don't know what the answer is for it, because that's family law, but in general, I'm not allowed to answer questions that are not state of California related unless they're federal, like immigration for the whole country. Myron says, so I can just wait at interview? It was a confusion. Say it at interview? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, you could update the record or say at the interview, whichever you prefer. Porsche says, is TSA referring passengers to ICE at the airport? I don't know. I mean, there's word that it is or not. I don't have any official notice of that. Diamond says, hey, so I'm an American. I married an American guy and from Canada. We married in Canada, but now I want my dual. How? Well, your husband's got to start the green card process for you. You got to get a green card. And then once you've had a green card for a couple of years, you can file for U.S. citizenship, and then that way you become a dual citizen. I have a lot of detailed videos for Canadians. Check out our YouTube page. I just did one that's going to be posted by today. YouTube page is JQK Law or U.S. Immigration Talk. I already have a couple up there for Canadians because we handle so many Canadian marriage green card cases. But I just did a new one that has some updated timeline information. So definitely check that out, Diamond. Dexter says, how long does it take to get an interview in Qatar? Let's see. So I'm assuming you mean an immigrant visa interview. That's for a green card, not for like a regular interview. And it depends on what kind of case you have. So, for example, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, and I think Qatar is Doha, the capital, right now they're scheduling interviews for people who are documentarily qualified by the National Visa Center in December 2023. So that's going to be backed up. That's pretty horribly backed up. Diamond follows up, even if we're in Canada now because we're waiting for his PR card. Yeah, he can start the process with Form I-130. That's going to take a year and a couple of months. And then you start the embassy process after that. Now, during that time, it becomes a tricky that if he's not living inside the United States, as well as his financial documentation and work, he'll probably need a joint sponsor. By the time the interview happens, he'll need to show he's living in the United States or very soon about to. He has work lined up or home to show that his domicile is going to be in the United States. That gets pretty tricky. A lot of people don't know about that rule. So that's where I would say consult with immigration. Schedule time to consult with us. jqqlaw.com/contact is the website. jqqlaw.com/contact. Go there and we'll have a scheduled consultation. Fees do apply. But when you contact us, we'll send information about how to schedule and what the fee is. Daphne says, since I'm applying for my citizenship September 30th, I and my husband failed file August 16th, divorce will affect me. It depends on, Daphne, if you're doing the 5-year or 3-year method. The 5-year method, probably not. The 3-year method, it very likely will. But I can't say for certain without reviewing your history, reviewing the divorce stuff, seeing when you stop living together. There's just too much stuff I got to review to be able to answer that properly. Mari asks, my wife's still waiting on her 10-year green card. She got extension. Is that normal? It's over a year now. Yeah. Go to our Instagram page, JQKY Instagram. We have approval notices. Sometimes they get done in 6 months. Sometimes they get done in 3 years. So That's why you got the extension notice, which says, I don't know, 4 years or 5 year extension. There's a reason for that because they expected it to take many years. So it taking, still waiting for a green card extension or it's over a year. That's like 2 seconds in immigration. That's like a blink of an eye in immigration timelines. Let's go back to Instagram. Zubair says, "What's new update for naturalization?" Well, Zubair, I did talked about this if I'll get to it again if we run out of questions, but I did talk about the naturalization update. Unfortunately, it's a very bad update. Shiva says, "I didn't include an affidavit support with my I-751. Will that cause any delays? You don't need to provide an affidavit support for removal conditions, extending your 2-year green card to a 10-year green card with Form I-751." Then the follow-up, "I did submit strong evidence to USCIS. Don't want her telephonic presence with me." I'm not sure what that last part means. Don't want her telephonic appearance with me. I'm not sure what that means. But yeah, you don't need to send an affidavit support with the I-751. Okay, so we got a couple things here. Zubair, I'll talk about it really quick. There was an update on the good moral character requirement for naturalization citizenship for N400. And what this says that they want to check your background in more detail and the totality to make sure you're a good person that's fit to become an American citizen, not just the basic requirements of being, having no criminal history, not claiming to be U.S. citizens, some of the fundamental stuff. But now they're like, we want more than that. We want great people to become American citizens that are contributing this and that. Now, how do you judge that? How do you judge that? I don't know. Dexter says, how long to get an interview in Saudi Arabia? Well, Dexter, again, I've asked this before, but it depends on what kind of case you have. But let's say you're married to a U.S. citizen, you're documentary qualified, the embassy is in Riyadh, and the timeline from the time you're documentary qualified to get your interview scheduled is right now in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, KSA, March 2025. So people who are documentary qualified, who are immediate relatives, who are documentary qualified in March 2025, are getting their interview notices now. Now, the interview notice could be in 1 to 3 months after you get the notice, but essentially people in March are getting notices in Saudi Arabia. Poth says, can new good moral character rules apply beyond the 5-year start period? Yeah. So when you file for citizenship, most of the time they look only the past 5 years. That's I forgot what the terminology of it is. But if you're married to a U.S. citizen, filing is 3 years, but look, that's 5 years. To see during the 5-year look back period how good or bad you were. But they can still look past that if they want. They have the discretion to do that. So you're never in the clear, unfortunately. It gets pretty scary. That's always things that are going to hang over your head. And we got to see. It's really going to depend on officer per officer basis how this is going to play out. Samantha asks, can a green card holder file for a spouse outside the U.S. before they become a citizen? Yes, they can. It's called the F2A category. It's backed up. It's going to take a couple years extra, but you can start out with the I-130 petition after you're married, send evidence of your relationship, and eventually they'll do consular processing. We have a detailed guide on all this stuff. The website for it is marriageimmigrationlaw.com. Again, type in marriageimmigrationlaw.com into Google or whatever extension you have on the internet, and you'll see a page where you put your information, and we'll release a guide, the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide, 50 plus pages of detailed information about the process, so you have an idea what's going on before you talk and hire any attorney. Shola says, how long should I-765 take to get approved? It depends on which kind of I-765 you're doing, but it's based on adjustment of status, typically 1 to 3 months, but sometimes it's like 9 or 10 months or even longer. Sometimes they lose it in the mail too, so it's a pretty tricky situation. Falsafati says, if a derivative is already in the U.S., the principal has an interview outside the U.S., the derivative cannot let USA go. What are the options for derivative? Well, the principal gets the immigrant visa, they enter the United States, and if the derivative satisfies the requirements, they file for adjustment of status in the United States. We got to check to see a lot of details, timelines, dates of birth, all this kind of stuff. So please schedule a consultation. Go to our website, go to jqqlaw.com/contact. Again, that's jqqlaw.com/contact. And let's schedule a private consultation. As Stefani says, my parents were denied adjustment of status due to 212A9C permanent bar through VAWA. Can I apply for T visa? I don't know. I don't do T visa, so I don't really get into the criteria of that one. But definitely shouldn't have applied if you're subject to a permanent bar. I'm not sure if VAWA forgives that or not, but I would have to look into it. But contact an attorney that does T visa so they can look at the whole thing. Maria Angelica de Jesus says, how long is it taking to approve an N470 application since last March. You're waiting for its approval before sending the F400 application. So the F470, we're getting, I mean, I only do like, one of these a year, but we usually get them approved in a couple of weeks. So if it's sent last month, maybe Trump administration got bad. So the last one we sent was probably in March, and we got approved in a couple of weeks. So make sure you cash the check. You got a receipt notice. You're getting notification for the government. But usually it's pretty fast, a couple of weeks. But maybe I think it was March when last. I have to look it up. But I think it was March when we filed it. Nay asks, I-130 approved, waiting for interview in Ciudad Juarez, but co-sponsor withdraw. What can happen? So if you haven't had the interview yet, it's not necessarily a deal killer. You can find another joint sponsor, do so ASAP. Mexico is kind of backed up, so there might be some more time still. Unfortunately, it's delays, but you got to get a joint sponsor to figure out the sponsorship situation. How long is AOS adjustment status denial is taking? I'm not sure what you mean. How long is adjustment status denial is taking? I'm not sure what that means. Jackie says, my husband was refused. Now he went to administrative processing. All right, we talked about that earlier. That's unfortunately something that happens sometimes where they're going to look more into the case or something like that. Who knows how it's actually going to play out, how the government's going to do it. All right, so for just tuning in, I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. We do private consultation as well. Go to jqqlaw.com/contact to fill in a request for a private consultation. Fees do apply, but once you let us know what kind of case, we could break down what the initial cost will be to get into your case. And if you're interested in a marriage green card case, download our guide, the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide. You go to marriageimmigrationlaw.com. You check it out there. Mark asked, I have an EB3 visa case, and I'm on the principal applicant. After my interview on August 6th, the consular officer gave me a 221G orange paper and returned our passports because of an old divorce issue. Okay, what's the issue? Did they ask for specific documents that you could satisfy it with? I'm not sure what it is. Maybe they don't accept your current marriage because they don't accept the old divorce being final. So you may have to get a local attorney to figure out what that is. These are things I'm just guessing at. I'm not sure if that's the case for you, but that's potentially what you're saying. But definitely consult an immigration attorney in private because it's pretty tricky now. You got to really have an individual review with a lawyer to see what's going on. All right, everybody, I'm about to close the show. If you have one or two more questions, please let me know. If not, we'll just call it a day today. I'll be back again next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. As always, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. And the last question is, Bob says, hello, is it easy for an EU resident to adjust status with marriage-based green card than other countries? No, I don't think it makes a difference. I mean, maybe it's better than if you're from certain other countries like Iran or something where you have background checks, but very unlikely. Dr. Owalaba says, can a K3 with my I-130 move our case faster? I would say like 15 to 20% of the time, yes, but usually no. Emir Haj says, any news on trial bans for Iranians? Just the same trial ban that was out a little bit ago. Same one exists. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen. Portia says, thanks, John, so much for your time. I'm an American. This immigration business is so confusing. After filing for alien I-130, what happens next? Once it's approved, your spouse is overseas. Portia, thank you for the kind words. You file an immigrant visa application with the National Visa Center, Form DS-260, civil documents, affidavit support, and eventually your spouse goes to an in-person interview after doing a medical checkup, and they do an interview, may issue the visa, they get denied. They may be refused, which means they got to think about it more. Anything is possible, but until I get into your case in more detail, it's hard for me to say. But thank you for asking your question, coming on the show. Great questions, Portia. So we'll be back again next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. Thank you for joining us. If you want to contact us, please do it so directly. Go to jqqlaw.com/contact. That's jqqlaw.com/contact. I wish you all the best. God bless. Be safe. I'll see you all next Tuesday. Bye-bye.